All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Ascension with A Course in Miracles. And today it is May 15th. And for those who are on Zoom, you can see that I am, or have the camera on. I know, Dondra, you're driving, so you're just on audio. But if you've got your camera on, you can see that I'm back home from a wonderful trip in Georgia. It was absolutely fantastic. And I am in a temporary situation because I'm actually going to be moving to another temporary place. You know, that's one of the beautiful things about being on this journey and discovering, when I say this journey, specifically the spiritual journey, and discovering that everything in this world is temporary. There is nothing that is ultimately solid. All of it is made of energy. There goes my little puppy. All of it is made of energy. All of it is pure consciousness. And we are trained, especially if you see this poster where I call it creators of reality. The Course in Miracles has taught me, plus the teachings that were given to me prior to the Course in Miracles called the Power of Awareness, the courses that I taught for a long time. And I'll be bringing those back because I kept hearing that's like the cliff notes to A Course in Miracles, like a cheat sheet to understand what the course is all about. And with the power of awareness, which was given to me by the consciousness that I call Christ, it's what it felt like. It was Jesus speaking to me, telling me how to write the course, and shared all the details, all the exercises. I didn't have I didn't have the awareness then that I have now to have written that out. It was given to me before I entered the journey of undoing. So let me be more specific. I was a couple of years into it, and I had a general awareness of where I was at that time and kind of what was coming. But when I was given the power of awareness, it's a roadmap, and it showed me these are the phases you're going to go through. Six distinct phases. They happen in two parts, 3 and 3. I was just at the end of stage 3, at the beginning of phase 4. And so I had very, very vague awareness of what was coming, but it was given to me as a roadmap so that I could just understand what was happening. So I taught that without even fully knowing it, but the teaching was really like this, a transmission. I would get into the course room, I would have all the students there, and I would just move Laina's ego aside and let the consciousness of God, spirit, whatever you want to call it, take over. And the things that would come out of my mouth after the first 2 or 3 classes, I said, I got to record this, because I needed to go back and listen to it, because as I was sharing it, I couldn't stop to do, okay, note to self while I'm in the middle of the delivery. So I started recording them. I started watching them, and it was like, oh my gosh, the essence of what I teach is in this poster, which is the circle that I teach, the soul's journey. And the journey here has the 3 phases that we go through when we're becoming indoctrinated into believing we're only a human, and the 3 phases that we go through as we are coming out of the illusion of separation, that we're just a human, the illusion of smallness, and we begin to accept the truth of who we are. And that I refer to as a spiritual journey. Most people do. But when you understand this circle, and you understand that if you see faintly the yin yang sign there, we are becoming darkened. Our mind is being covered up. It's like a bushel being placed over our light, or you could call it a lampshade. So we are becoming less aware of the truth. And this spiritual journey is to remember the truth. But when you boil it down to the essence of the teachings, is that we're creators of our own reality. When we are unaware that we are creating our reality, which, listen, it's becoming very obvious right now as humanity is becoming more curious about what's happening, which curiosity is the 4th phase. More of humanity is moving out of the control phase into the curiosity phase. And the controllers, those who think that they are in control, those who think that they get to tell us what to do, they totally, completely understand that we are creators. So the training that we have been receiving, the indoctrination, the programming, whatever you want to call it, has been to deliberately suppress our ability to consciously create. But it doesn't suppress our creative ability. We just create wrongly, or as the Course says, we miscreate, meaning our power is constantly active. But when you're not conscious of what it is that you want to create, then you create by default, and you create with whatever's in your mind, because the creation happens at the level of mind. The thoughts that we hold in mind, the ideas that we hold in mind, when they are given passion, desire, just excitement, they will manifest. But when they are given anger, when they are given the energy of revenge or the energy of jealousy, they are going to create, because it does not matter if you are wanting good or you are wanting bad. If you want somebody to suffer because of what they did to you, your thought that you want them to suffer, powered with your desire of their suffering, activates, even though it's the energy of anger, the energy of revenge, it is creative. So humanity has been creating from an unconscious place. And the what is happening right now is that we're seeing the world that we have co-created, because we agreed to give our power away to government, to doctors, to teachers, to bosses, to spouses. We gave our power outside of us, and we said, well, you tell us what to think. You indoctrinate us and tell us what to learn in school. You indoctrinate us and tell us how to deal with our body, what to feed it. We listen to the food pyramid. And I'm looking at it lately, and it's like it's been revised, and oh my gosh, they literally tell you to eat sugar and cereal. Anyways, so we've given power to external forces in medicine to tell us how to heal ourselves with external products that are concocted of synthetic things, not most of them not natural. And then we give our power to government to tell us how we're supposed to treat each other, what the laws are. And then we're seeing that some apply to one group and not to the other. And the group that's in power, they all get off. They don't have to be abiding by the rules. Neither do their family members or their special cronies. And then the other group that's not in, well, then you get in. You're not. The law is not going to apply to you, or is going to come after you, because it's a system. We call it the justice system, but it's really becoming clear. It's the injustice system, because it operates in haves and have-nots and hierarchy. These are special. These are not. That's part of the lie that we have been told, that we're separate from one another, and I got to protect myself from you, meaning that pretty much all of our creations are selfishly oriented. They're all about me. When we begin the process of waking up and we realize we're made of energy, we realize what consciousness is, that everything is consciousness, that as the Course in Miracles teaches, we're ideas in the mind of God. We exist because God thinks of us, thought of us as a concept of a creation it wanted to experience. That's why even biblical texts say in the beginning was the Word, and the Word became flesh. You and I, being the Word, have to understand that the Word is idea. It's the same thing as idea. And God had an idea of us, and we became flesh. The planet came first, then the minerals, the plants, the animals, to populate this space, to get it ready for that which we are, which is a living, breathing expression of God. All children come in as beautiful little angels that even the stories say, they come from heaven, the stork delivers them. So we all come in the space of being connected. If you draw a line down the middle, little children are pure essence, but little by little begins the conditioning that through the first three phases to help us become participants in the ego's world. We are taught about things like fear, like darkness, hiding, scary things. There's so many things that are designed to scare the crap out of us. I remember when I was little, my dad used to love to play with us, and we loved it too. to play monster. He was a monster and he would be chasing us. And it was so much fun going hiding in the dark and then the monster finding us. And so it normalized that scary, big, scary things can come after you and catch you. But that didn't hurt you. At the end of the day, that didn't hurt us. But it leaves an imprint about things happening to you by big, scary things. And then, of course, you watch television, movies that perpetuate Godzilla, big monster coming to eat us. So our mind gets programmed with all these things that can happen in the darkness. Usually the murders are at night and all the things are in the woods in the dark. And so we are conditioned to believe that darkness is the scary place. And we believe suffering because, people die, and we watch people older than us when we're children suffer because somebody has died. We see them get sick. They talk about lack. So we get programmed in all of these things that are nothing but lies, because they're all judgments on the world. This is good. This is bad. Death is bad. Birth is good. Having money is good. Lack is bad. So our mind gets conditioned. So we descend into the control phase where we try to control the world with all of the beliefs that are in our mind, and they're all egoic beliefs. What this does is it creates layers and layers and layers of blockages to the truth of who we are. We become unconscious of the truth. We're not consciously aware of the truth that is there, that we're born with, all of us born with the exact same truths, but we put all these layers. We darken ourselves. That's why this is a journey to enlighten. We cover up the light that we are. The truth that we are gets covered and darkened, like what's that story in the Bible? Don't hide your light under a bushel. Think of the bushel as nothing more than layers and layers and layers of like lampshades covering up the truth of who we are. You could also use the metaphor that we are the sun shining brightly, but all the clouds of lies cover up. So no different than on a cloudy day, you go, oh my gosh, there's no sun. Well, yes, there is sun, but you can't see it because of the clouds. So yes, you are a magnificent being, but you don't know that because of the layers clouding your perception of untruths. So when we study something like the Course in Miracles, it is simply helping us see what is God's world and what is the ego's. So did God create this world? Yes and no. This is where these teachings help us understand. Yes, God creates the earth. God creates everything because in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was made flesh. God wanted a planet, a universe, everything that is populated that we can see through a telescope, all of it. You don't even need a telescope. Walk out at night and look up at the stars. All of it is God's creation. And God creates. And in the creation, because God is imagining, it's an idea in the mind of God, it makes a decision, because it can, that it wants to experience itself. It wants to experience all that it created. So everything, because it's in the mind of God, is pure consciousness. It's a pure energy that is expressing itself in all of these different ways. So yes, God created the earth, populated it with everything that was necessary for the humans to end up on this planet. Whether we came here, so much has been revealed right now. Even the government is telling us about alien beings. So when we expand our awareness that we actually are a relatively newer planet in all of, in all of the cosmos, and our mind is being expanded to understand. See, we were taught that the scary monsters are coming from outside, and they come in the dark in the night, and they're coming from the big darkness of the sky to scare us little people down here. As we're hearing more and more and more, people who have had contact, it is not so. Is there an element of meanness out there? Yes, of course, because in consciousness, in all that God is the permission, which is represented by this dot, is the permission to take the separation, the expression of individualized bodies, no matter what they look like, alien form, human form, it doesn't matter, and use that separation for service to self, for selfish desires. But it's from my understanding, my experience with the alien stuff, because I have my own intuitive hits, but also I listen to a lot of people who speak to that, because one of the characteristics of somebody who embodies the teachings of the Course is open-mindedness. So you got to open up your mind. You can't believe that everything is just what you know. You've got to move beyond that and stay curious, because curiosity is inherent in, it's the fourth phase of the journey, and curiosity remains. It's part of the whole thing. Why? Because God is a curious child. It's a child that is in a perpetual state of wonder. Oh, I wonder what this is going to look like. No different than an artist. I wonder what this painting's going to look like, or a musician. I wonder what this song's going to look like. And you begin to get glimpses and ideas, and then we manifest them physically. God, because it is all that is, gets the whole picture, and we are expressions that get layered onto that picture at the right and appropriate time. Why we had earth first, minerals and animals and vegetation next, and then we had humanity populating the planet, and they were beings who came from all over the place. If you're open to all of that, then you are expanding your awareness to come to know God a little better, because our understanding of God as conditioned through primarily religious teachings are that God's out there on a cloud and we are down here, and God punishes us pretty much like a father, like a human father. My father did that to us too. Yes, we played monsters and had fun, but we also got in trouble and got spanked, and we had the bell taken to us. So really, humans have projected God in its own image instead of understanding what is God and learning about our image based on what God is. So when we open ourselves up to the possibility that God is so vast, and you get curious about what God is, you begin to discover, especially through listening to others who have experiences, that we are just such a complex yet simple creation. Simple in that it is all in the mind of God. It is all God's imagination, a desire to experience all of this infinite potential, and as itself in everything, experiencing all that is. So that's the simplicity. The complex part is that we're trying to learn, where is God? What is God made of? What is energy? What are atoms and molecules, and how it forms organs and rocks and things like that. So we're in the egoic complication part of understanding God. A child knows what God is. It feels God through the impulse of desire, through the impulse of joy, to just experience, to just be, to just enjoy what is. A child will enjoy anything. You can put anything in front of it, even its toes, it's going to suck them. You could give a child, poison, and it's going to take it, because it's going to try everything, because it is totally, completely curious. So when we move to the simplicity of God, the ego mind doesn't like that. Oh, no, it can't be that simple. But A Course in Miracles is telling us that we have to keep it simple. You cannot know the truth of who you are if you complicate it. So as we have been studying the Course, it is giving us very simple teachings that the ego mind, if it's not ready for them, is going to reject them. That's why, Course in Miracles, as magnificent as it is teaching us the truth, doesn't have quite the following that the Bible does, or the Quran, or oh goodness, I can't even think of the name of it. Doesn't have quite those followings for a couple of reasons. One, it's written in such a way that the intellectual mind can grasp information. So it is written in what could be perceived as a complicated way for the one who thinks, I'm so smart, and this is written for that smart mind. However, it is very repetitive because it is pointing to the simplicity that gets explained in 1,000 ways for the mind that likes to complicate things, to begin to take topics and break them down, when all of it leads to one very simple thing. God is consciousness. God is energy. God is all that is, and you are that. And once we can accept that, then we go about being in this world, but not of it. Why? Because God did create the earth, but the ego has created the world that we're experiencing, the world of lack and limitation and suffering and hunger and murders and abuse and just sexualizing things, utilizing the beautiful aspect of sexuality in such an immoral way. Why? Because we can. Thankfully, the Course tells us God is not judging any of us for doing that. God is simply observing lovingly all of the ways that we can utilize the power of creation. If we misuse it to hurt ourselves, we actually don't alter what God is. We don't alter consciousness, because when we drop these physical vessels, what we are is eternal. That is why I'm in a temporary place, because I've learned that I don't have to own things to feel safe. Like I used to think it has to be mine for me to be safe. I'm okay flowing and being a gypsy because I'm in the mind of God. I am safe. Nothing's going to happen to me, to the soul that I am. My human self is going through experiences that I get to determine, do I like it or not? Is this my preference or not? Not from a judgment, but strictly from preference. And that has allowed me to be in a creative, perpetual creative state of being, where I'm creating on a day-to-day basis, not locking myself into, I have my house, my future is secure because I'm going to live here. I've got a 30-year mortgage. I'm going to be here for 30 years and then it's paid off and I can retire and be here. I used to live my life that way. Everything had to be planned out, but that was my ego planning a life for me that left very little room for hearing the inspiration of God within me. And to be able to hear God within you and know that it is God and feel that inspiration so that we can do God's will, not our will, we have to undo all of our attachments, because our attachments are based on what we have been indoctrinated to create the world of the ego. Attachments that say you have to have an education and then you have to get a job and you have to work 40 hours. Who said we have to work 40 hours? Who made that up? It's nowhere in the Bible you have to work 40 hours. Who came up with that? But it is part of what the world that is falling apart is, a world that is based on controls, specifically to give our power away. When we give our power away to the banking institution, and then we have a mortgage, well, then they're in control. They own the house, you don't. I was paying for a mortgage for a house that I never really owned. The bank owned it. And if I didn't make my payments, we were going to discover pretty quickly who owned that house. and if I didn't pay my taxes, we were going to discover pretty quickly who else owned that house. So we have been indoctrinated into believing that the outside has power. And then we've been working really hard to check the things on the list that we were told we needed to be, we needed to do, and we needed to have in order to do life right. Well, all of that is miscreation. Nothing wrong with it. If you want to buy a house, if you want to get a mortgage, all of that is well and good. But the world that created those systems out of control and out of greed is falling apart, so that we can shift to a world on this earth that God created for us. But we are co-creating a new world where banking is going to be transparent, where the price of a home is not going to be inflated by big corporations who are trying to control things, buying up all the houses. And these things were done. If you go back and read history and look at the financial markets, you can see that in the housing market crash, all of that was designed to let people get more to entice us into buy more that we couldn't afford, with the promise of variable rates and balloon mortgages and things like that. And you're going to make more money at your job, so then you can just sell it when you make more. All kinds of crazy things. All made sense back then. I was a realtor. All of that made sense because I was perceiving the world through dark glasses. I had the shades over my eyes. I was totally, completely unconscious and unaware of the controlling that were setting things up for exactly what has happened now. So you give lots of people housing and you tell them it's going to be easy to have and they deserve it and it's what makes them be successful. They have to have a house in their portfolio. After all, it's the American dream. And then you convince them all of these, then you crash the market because there is a controlling power that is manipulating everything. If you don't see it, it's because you don't have the eyes to see it yet, but it is going to be very visible very soon. All are going to be able to see it and not be able to deny anymore that we have sold our soul. And you can't really sell your soul. Your soul belongs to God. But the saying is that basically we sold our soul. We said, hey, you take care of me, government, and I'll do whatever you want to do. We have kind of an illusion of freedom, but not really. I mean, you can't do a whole lot. I don't think you can do anything without the government surveilling or knowing or permitting or giving you a permit. You can't even go fishing without a permit. So can't go fishing on a planet that God gave us fully stocked with all these animals. Oh, you can't do that without a permit. Why? Well, because we have controllers that make it so that you believe that you don't have the ability to make your own decisions. Sort of, to give you the illusion of freedom, but not really all of them. So the housing market bubble happens. Then all of these homes that the average person cannot afford get gobbled up by corporations. So all these corporations that are having, purchase these houses, all again planned, all of this, well, let me say most of it planned. It appears that there was an illusion of people forming companies to buy houses and rent them out or apartments or whatever. So the attachment to the things that the outer world controls is a source of suffering. Why? Because it's part of the ego's world. Suffering is part of what we learn happens in the world. And, you might be lucky, you might not be. So in the world of the ego, the Course in Miracles is telling us, don't create idols. Don't idolize anything outside of you. Do not give power to anything outside of you. So in previous chapters, we're right now in chapter 30 called The New Beginning, because we're at the time of a new beginning. And, I don't question when I am inspired to do things for these transmissions. I don't question them at all, because it takes us a while to get through these chapters. And the new beginning that we are still in, and we will be in for a little bit, is the time that we are actually in right now in the outer world. We are literally, for those with eyes to see and ears to hear, there is a new beginning happening. There is a shift towards a new earth that is being created. Eckhart Tolle was inspired by the same source that inspires me, that inspires each and every one of us, to write a book called The New Earth 20 some odd years ago, 25 years ago. That book was setting the minds that were on a spiritual journey attuned to this idea of a new earth and preparing us for this new beginning. Well, a lot of people didn't quite understand what that was, myself included, until I began to see that the old earth, what we're leaving behind, is a world made up of just pure ego. And ego is minds who are utilizing the gift that God has given us of experience ourselves as separate for the purpose of co-creation, for fun, for relationships, for upliftment, for joy. God gives us that experience, creates his one and only son. And what that really means is God creates everything out of one energy. It's all consciousness itself in its image. So we have an experience. Each and every one of us is the one and only child of God, because each and every one of us are made of the exact same energy. Yes, you appear to look different and the cows appear to look different, but it's all the same one energy. There's only one energy creating everything, that is God giving itself the experience of otherness for the purpose of coming into union, for the purpose of relationship. When we understand that from a loving place, when we understand that because that's the truth, then we are operating consciously. We wouldn't hurt anybody. We wouldn't lie to anybody. We wouldn't cheat on anybody. We would operate in total, complete honesty and integrity. Understanding nobody is better than another. Nobody is more special than another. Nobody completes anybody else. We're all playmates on this beautiful playground. That's what I called my former partners. Just they were playmates. Once I began to understand what this was all about, when I met Ken, who was the first playmate that I had, as I began to understand, oh, okay, well, we're all connected. There is absolutely nothing here that is separate. We're all connected. And once I understood the earth that God created, it's a playground. So of course, everything becomes a playmate. My kids were my playmates. I began to stop thinking of my children as my children and lesser than, and I'm up here as, the parent. I began to see them as my brothers and sisters in Christ, playmates on this wonderful playground. My friends became my playmates. Everything became a playmate. So as we move through this section, the new beginning, our mind is being trained to see more clearly, to remove those illusions that have been blocking us from the awareness of the truth, to begin to see things differently. So instead of, as we learned in the first paragraph in the section that we're in, which is the justification for forgiveness, the Course teaches us that the world uses forgiveness to say, well, I'll forgive, but I won't forget. And I'm going to forgive the thing you did to me. The Course is telling us that we're forgiving what never happened. We forgive them. They don't know what they're doing because they're unconscious. Everybody who's operating under the illusion of separation, listening to the programming that we receive as children, that's what forms the ego, is that belief of things that are not true. Once we begin to see forgiveness through how God wants us to see it, because we understand that we're all one, how can anybody have heard the energy that you are that is eternal? It's not possible. But to be able to see that, you've got to elevate your consciousness to the level of reason, which means you've got to think like God. To experience love, joy, and peace, and what's known as enlightenment, you have to begin to think like God. Course in Miracles is a glimpse into the mind of God, into the truth of God. So you got to sort out, this is what the Bible teaches. Some of it is factual. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was made flesh. That's true. That is easy to understand when you study things like the Course in Miracles. But the Bible also has a lot of misinformation about a vengeful God, a God that asks you to sacrifice your firstborn child or sacrifices young virgins. That is not, none of that is what a loving God asks of us. A loving God doesn't ask for us to do anything other than to enjoy being ourselves as it created us. Creative beings who co-create from a place of joy, never do any harm to others. But beings who believe that we were created in its image and it is a punishing God, give ourselves permission to punish others. Well, if God does it to me, then I can do it to anybody else. And that misinformation has created a world that has required forgiveness. And when we forgive in the world, but of the world, we forgive and don't forget. Course is telling us to forgive from up here and see these people as these terrible people who did this bad thing to us or to anybody else. It does two things. It makes the other thing that we are judging real. Oh, wow, they really hurt somebody. They really stole something. They really took away something from us. We make that real. So it gives permission to the ego to operate in lack. Things got taken away from me. And well, without my child, because you murdered it, or without my bank account, because you stole my money, or without my partner, because you stole him from me. You had an affair with him and he cheated on me and now he wants you, not me. While we believe that things can be taken from us, we operate from lack. So when you forgive that other thing, you're making it real. And we are, because I did it too, we are making the whole game of the ego our reality. That's the world that's falling apart, meaning you can't see things through your ego and move into a world that experiences world peace. It's not possible, because the ego that believes my country's right and yours is not right, and my system, my banking system is good and yours is not, and it justifies wars, and it justifies taking down other worlds or other countries, other leaders through regime changes. We cannot continue to justify the story of lack, because it gives permission to those who are giving us a sense of protection. We're protecting your stuff so nobody takes it from you. Well, we don't want to continue, and many of us are not feeding that energy. So as we go through understanding what the forgiveness is really about, we see that anger is not justified. That's what we read in our episode 141 back in March, that anger is not justified. Never, because pardon is always justified. Forgiveness is justified, where we begin to say, you know what you did, you didn't know what you were doing. So we're easing our way into awakening by saying, you didn't know what you were doing. You were under the spell. You were under an illusion of separation. You were under mind control. Your mind was not your own. Your mind had been fed misinformation that had you project out into the world that, that is the way it is. People lie, people cheat. I got to protect myself. Let me get a security system. Well, that helps corporations make money. So because we have been operating in that world, and now we don't want to operate in that world, those of us who are waking up are going, no, I'm trusting that I am taken care of by God. I am trusting, and we are moving to that place of certainty. Your frequency is going up and up and up. And from that place, you are utilizing your power to create a new world where you are connecting with those who would never lie to you, cheat you, take stuff from you. You're connecting with those who operate at a frequency of integrity. You don't need security systems in a world of integrity. You don't need to lock things in a world where nobody would cheat or lie. Why? Because when we move to a higher frequency of understanding, when we come to know the truth that we are one, intuitively, we know who's lying and who's not. Intuitively, we're operating in a realm of ESP. We know we have, everybody is communicating, and the Course tells us, prepares us, all minds are one. There are no private thoughts when you begin to understand the truth of who you are. And you don't want private thoughts, because to withhold from another is to bring you down into the realm of separation. You first have to be separate from them for there to be another. Then you got to validate lack. I got to protect me so they don't take something from me. So we are little by little being reprogrammed, if you will. It's really deprogramming, but for a portion of the journey, it feels like programming, like we're learning things from the outside, like we're taking in information. Oh, the Course is teaching me things that I don't know. The Bible's teaching me things that I don't know. The Gita is teaching me things that I don't know. This teacher is helping me learn things I didn't know about energy. This teacher is helping me learn things that I know about healing. This teacher is helping me learn things about manifestation. It appears that we are being programmed with new information, but when you have enough, you've moved down this journey enough, and you have hindsight, and you look back and you go, oh, they weren't giving me new information. They were activating the old information, the truth that has always been in there, by helping me shift out of the old thinking and lift into a higher dimensional understanding of things. We are raising our awareness to how God sees it versus how the ego sees it. So it appears that it is new, but it's really activating what is eternal and old, because it's eternal. And then we have to choose to stop believing what is not true. So as we begin the process of detaching, we are basically letting go of our idea that this thing is what makes me safe, that this thing is what makes me valuable, because the ego confuses self-worth with net worth. And when those two, when my money or my stuff becomes synonymous with who I am, with my self-worth, it's not an easy thing to undo, which is why we're preparing to have another massive financial crash. We have to see the outside illusion shatter, because humanity is moving. I'm going to say we're close to that 25-30% of people who are seeing the illusion, who are seeing the lies, who are seeing past their fears. They're not letting their fears run their lives. They're moving to a level that requires incredible courage. You got to value yourself. You got to value peace and joy as your natural state of being. So you got to have courage to stand up. And there are plenty today who are standing up to the idol, saying, no, I'm not going to believe what you're telling me. Just because you're the president doesn't mean you know more than me. Not at all. Doesn't mean that you get to decide what I want. So as we begin to understand that anger is not justified, those who are in that ascension path, that's why I call this Ascension with A Course in Miracles, you are moving. You're not going to be taking revenge on the outer world, because internally you know that you want to see everything through the eyes of God. You're practicing the forgiveness that says, they don't know what they're doing. I'm not going to judge what they're doing. I'm accepting that it is possible in a world where opposites is part of this reality. It's the polarity is part of this world. God has given us the opportunity to play with dark and light. But when you understand that dark is just the absence of light, is God has given us the opportunity to operate in the sunlight, or at night, in when the light is not there, the sun is on the other side of the planet, not as a bad thing, not to turn it into good and bad, but to experience differences. But because the human mind is trained into the monsters come out at night, then we have accepted that bad things can happen in the dark. This new earth, the new beginning, is that no, bad things don't happen to those who are co-creating a world that is strictly based on love, on peace, on integrity, on transparency. One of the things that the government has been fighting is being transparent. And those are the things that the people with courage right now are questioning. I want to see this. I want to see the records. Because when you understand that money and power is of the ego, that is what the ego loves, money and power. That's where it gets its sense of worth. When you begin to follow the trail of money, you begin to see how power has been misused. And there are many courageous people. A lot of them go through the experience of being killed to help us see, to draw attention to the insanity of a world run by that corruption. It's a mind that has been corrupted. It's a program that is totally corrupted, that to serve very few, the 1%, at the expense of the rest. God created us equal. And if we move to the place that we understand the truth of who we are, we treat each other very differently. So we've been seeing the importance of forgiveness. Why? Because forgiveness is a necessary step to move through the process of healing the mind and the body. The body, and this is a total different conversation for another day, but just in its essence, the body is made by the ego. The body that we experience is utilized by the ego to kind of hold store the emotions that we can't work through, because the mind has been programmed with things, with lies, that if you don't feel good, you got to take a pill, or if you don't feel good about something, you got to numb yourself with alcohol, with whatever. Just don't feel it, don't feel it, don't feel it. So the body has been a receptacle for all of these unprocessed emotions that the ego doesn't want you to see. When we decide to do God's will, not ours, then we begin to use the body in its density as the ego created it, to purge it of the lies that we have been storing in it through the form of energetic healing, the emotions that are blocked, that create illnesses, that create suffering, that create joint pain. As we forgive and we release those stuck emotions, then we lighten up. The body begins to lighten up. We are going to see in generations to come, the body becoming more and more translucent, because the lighter it is, the less it's going to be dense and thick, which the ego needs to hide the lies. But as our body becomes enlightened, we begin to move to the realms where eventually we don't need a physical body, because we will have a body made of light. For somebody new on this journey, this is like, what the heck is she talking about? But for somebody who understands that we're energy, it makes perfect sense. Energy is light. You know, in the beginning was the light. Just the word is the light. It's energy, it's intelligence. All of that is really the truth of who we are. So we're going through baby steps, little by little, just as we went from kindergarten to first grade to second grade to third grade. Little by little, we were indoctrinated into the lies of the ego. We're little by little, one step at a time, to the extent that we can handle it, that we don't go into cognitive dissonance. We are unpacking things, and it takes a lot of repetition to unpack the same thing, because we learned it through repetition. We unlearn it through repetition. So we are told that forgiveness is necessary for healing. Then we are told that we've got to get to the place that we begin to understand that, and I'm going to read this from paragraph 8, which we read last week. Look on your brother with the willingness to see as he is, to see him as he is, to see her as she is. And do not keep a part of him outside your willingness that he be healed, because to heal is to make whole. When we begin to see everybody, even those idols, even those movie stars that we put on a pedestal, or politicians or CEOs that we put up there and thought, oh, they're amazing, we want to be like them, and we gave our power to them, we need to begin to forgive them. They don't know what they're doing if they thought that they have power over us. They didn't know what they were doing if they thought they were better than we are because they were a movie star. They didn't know what they were doing if they thought that we needed to listen to them because they are a father or a mother, or because they're our spouse or a parent. We need to utilize what the Course teaches, justify no anger, but begin to forgive everybody. They didn't know what they were doing. We didn't know what we were doing when we were operating with misinformation. But it did create a pretty fascinating story, didn't it? I mean, look at all the drama that we have experienced because of the ego. But those who are done with drama, those who are ready to move out of drama and trauma into a world of love and peace and collaboration, must pivot and co-create a new beginning. But you cannot pivot to start things anew and do it God's way, not the ego's way. To pivot, to shift, and to lift into that frequency, into that reality, you must accept that you are the creator of all of it, that you co-created the insanity because you didn't know, but your creative power was being misused again, to co-create what you don't like. That is why spiritual people go through this, what's known as bypass. Oh, I only want the light. I don't want to see the dark. I don't want to see the war. I don't want to hear the news. I don't want to see any of that. Well, here's the thing that the Course is saying. We are the light that is going to dissipate the darkness. We are the very light that must be, that we must shine on it, so that we can see that it is nothing. We must look at the things that are happening and say, nope, you don't have power over me. No, you're not going to tax me the way that you do. I'm happy to contribute, but I'm not willing to keep voting for this. I'm not willing to trust that you have my best interest at hand, when I can see that that's not what's happening. We have to look at that and say, I co-created that. That's how my creative power was used without my awareness. I was unconscious to it. Face that, not to shame ourselves, but to forgive ourselves. Forgive ourselves. We didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know what we were doing when we contributed to the world the ego has made. That same power of co-creation, because you can't be a victim of the world you see and be a creator. Those are two very, very different energies. A victim is down here. A creator is operating a much higher frequency consciously for the greater good of all. So as we observe what is, watch a couple episodes of the news, not to depress yourself, but to see, wow, yes, this is an insane world. This hurting each other, this keeping people hungry, all of these things that are happening, these atrocities that are happening, they're happening because I have believed that that is true. And when we say, you know what, it's an experience that is taking place, but it's never affected my soul. It's never affected any of those souls. These people don't realize that their souls are eternal. And then you begin to have the kind of prayer that the Course invites us to do, which is to realize that we are one mind. And in your prayer time, you are just simply, you are stating the truth. We are all children of God. Everyone deserves to have whatever experience they, as a child of God, as a soul before incarnating, wanted to experience. Because there's so much love in me, I send it to whoever needs it. Because there's peace overflowing in me, may whoever needs to remember peace, may they receive this peace. And you just send, you give what you have received out to the world. No expectations that anybody stop or do things when on your timeline, but rather we are realizing that as creators of our reality, our frequency emits a signal that helps people either feel uplifted or oppressed. If we're victims, we're sending out victim energy. We're sending out the frequency of victimization. If we stand as a co-creator, we send it not because we think, oh, they shouldn't be hurt like that, but because we say, hey, I'm sending you so much of this frequency that is available for you to remember when you're ready to remember to wake up. And we see everybody as a powerful creator. Then we are prepared for this new beginning. But we can't have the new beginning without first taking our power back from the old and saying, no, that you had no power to make me a victim. Whatever you did to me 20 years ago, 50 years ago, 5 lifetimes ago has zero influence on me now because I've released all of that. I don't hold that density in my body. So when you face it and you feel it and you heal it, now you're prepared for the new beginning where all beings are created equal, endowed by our creator with the same inalienable rights. Of course, thank you. So glad that you were here. And when we recognize that we've been endowed by our creator with the same inalienable rights, we can only do what is good for the greater good. That's the only way that this works. So when we move into paragraph number 9, it states, God's son is perfect, or he cannot be God's son. So when we begin to see that everybody is a perfect, they're exactly where they're supposed to be, either thinking unconsciously with the ego, or they're thinking consciously. In that case, if they're thinking consciously, they're co-creating for the greater good of all. If they're thinking unconsciously, they're co-creating with the ego, and it is going to have suffering. Not for us to judge it, but to forgive them. They don't know what they're doing when they're asleep. Jesus didn't come here and judge anybody. Jesus simply said, I forgive you. You don't know what you're doing. And look, it's taken us 2,000 years to receive his message again in the form of A Course in Miracles to help us understand the very things that he was telling us before. I and the Father are one. He was telling us we're all one. You got to become like a little child to enter the kingdom. You've got to remove all of the conditioning you learned and go back to what you knew as a little child, what you brought into the earth that God created. So when we can see everybody in that perfection, then we know that all of us are the children of God. Nor will you know him if you think he does not merit the escape from guilt in all its consequences and its forms. If you think, oh, they should be punished, they were bad, and you don't extend the forgiveness that the Course teaches, which is we're not justifying any separation, any hierarchy. We're not justifying any judgment. I forgive you. You're playing the role that you needed to be playing. And you see everybody in that neutral way. You are in the old world. You are part of the ego's world. That's why honesty is so important, because we have to acknowledge when we are judging, when we're in fear, when we are scared that there's going to be a financial collapse, and what's going to happen, because that means you don't trust God. You don't trust that everything is operating as it should. Sentence 3, there is no way to think of him but this. If you would know the truth about yourself, we have to train our mind. It sounds like programming. You think that this is new things that you're hearing, but they're not. They're just the truth that are being activated in you. And that frequency, once it gets activated and it begins to express itself, you will go, oh yeah, this is what I've always known. I thank you, Father, for your perfect Son, and in his glory will I see my own. Because when we see the perfection of another, it is only possible because we have come to know the perfection in ourselves. When we know ourselves as non-physical energy, fear disappears, lack disappears, worry disappears, judgment disappears. It can't be there because it's a low frequency thinking. It can be in a vessel that has been purified to the extent that it is thinking at a level of kindness, compassion, truth, tolerance, open-mindedness, trust. A mind, a body that has been set up for that frequency cannot hold a lie which says, you people are bad, I'm right and you're wrong. Those things don't fit. So here is the joyful statement that there are no forms of evil that can overcome the will of God. The glad acknowledgement that guilt has not succeeded by your wish to make illusions real. And what is this except a simple statement of truth? Here, Jesus is telling us in this course that there is a simple truth. We're all one. Every single one of us is able to create whatever we want to experience because we have the power to create our reality. We've been creating, not aware that we were creating with misinformation, or we create aware that we're creating with right information, truth as the information that we abide in, doing God's will, that we utilize our creative powers to co-create a world that is in service to the greater good of all. So while we judge others as separate, we make the ego real. While we judge them as doing something wrong to us, we make that real. We cannot release ourselves from the bad things that were done to us if we make them real. That's why this level of forgiveness, forgive them for they don't know what they're doing. They're miscreating, but I'm not going to judge them because they're creators and they wanted to experience that. Everybody who is suffering, this is a hard thing for people to understand, but this doesn't make sense until it does. Everybody who is suffering at the level of the soul is not suffering. But in the human journey, there is suffering because we have agreed to believe the ego and not just God. That's why we incarnate, to have an experience of separation. We just have taken it to the realm that we could take it, to the darkest realm that we could, because that is what the third dimension is for. Those who are ready to move to a higher dimension, meaning you're purifying your mind, you're purifying your body, you don't want to play the game of suffering anymore. It's not necessary. There is no suffering in total, complete transparency, honesty, and trust in God. So to get to that new beginning, you've got to step away from the old. You've got to take that journey one step at a time. I call it a bridge. You can call it a ladder, whatever you want to call it. The process of ascension is of moving towards the truth of who we are by acknowledging that we played in the third dimension, contributed to what it is according to the ego, and we are we're withdrawing our energy consciously, not by condemning it, but by acknowledging that they are just as powerful as we are. They just don't remember that. Then our work becomes to be in service, to hear the voice of God. Where can we serve to assist in the shift in consciousness that we're in? We can't avoid it. It's happening. But those who do not want to leave third grade don't have to. Those who enjoy that push-pull of victim bully, that pendulum swinging, that's a thrilling ride. It's a very thrilling ride for a soul that wants to have an experience of what is other than itself. let them. Don't judge them. Let them, but you be honest and say you prefer to play at another level, and then play at that level. Be that love you want to experience. Be that integrity, that transparency you want from others. That is when you begin to understand what Jesus says, do unto others as you would like them to do unto you. We have to treat others how we want to be treated. As victims, we do that very well. Now, as sovereign beings, we must begin to see everybody as it says right here. Look on your brothers and sisters with the willingness to see them as they are. A powerful soul having a human experience of their choosing. Now, as a grandmother that I am, watching my daughter as a new parent, they are consciously raising their children to remember this truth. So as we help the little ones remember the truth, they live in a higher frequency. So they're not going to get programmed to go low. They're going to stay at a higher vibe. Then the world that we are moving toward, this new earth, is already being populated by children who haven't been programmed in lack and fear and giving their power away. They are being reminded of the truth that is in them, and they are helping with the co-creation, because it's a huge generation, helping us build the new earth that Eckhart Tolle told us about, that Jesus actually pointed us to 2,000 years ago. Thank you all so much for being here today. I so appreciate you. Some of you had to drop off earlier. Some of you stayed here to the very end. Thank you. I love being able to offer what is coming through me in this uncensored format. It's just so wonderful. So this is episode 148. If you want to see the previous 147 episodes, go to my YouTube channel, Laina Orlando, and you'll be able to see all of the other ones that we've been doing for years now. Thank you all so much, and I will see you next week, 12 o'clock Eastern time, pretty much every week. Love you all. Bye-bye.